Hey gamers, welcome to Ongaku Concept, the channel for video game music theory. This week I want to talk about writing songs with depth, writing songs that are not one-dimensional. As game composers, we have to illustrate environments and create atmospheres and describe all of these things that are not flat. And for that, we need to make sure that we're not writing one-dimensional music. To do this, you often need to start using notes and chords that are outside of the key that you're working in. And so I want to look at an older JRPG called Secret of Mana. It came out in 1993 on the SNES, and it features an amazing soundtrack entirely composed by the incredible Hiroki Kikuta. There's a song on that soundtrack called Spirit of the Night, and it's pretty somber, it's pretty sad, but there's this one point where things kind of lift for just a moment. It's nothing more than a simple A major chord, but that doesn't tell us anything without context, so let's examine the music. So this song is in the key of A minor, which is based on the A minor scale, which has 7 notes. Harmonizing this scale gives us 7 basic chords that exist inside of the key. The first of these chords is called the tonic, and since we're in the key of A minor, naturally, the tonic is an A minor chord. Like all chords in the key, it consists of a root, a third, and a fifth, which in this chord are A, C, and E, respectively. The distance between A and C is an interval known as a minor third, and this is why it's a minor chord. If we were to raise this C up to a C sharp, we would have a major third, which would make this an A major chord. The sad, dark tone of the minor tonic is what this key is all about. And so changing this chord to a major chord gives us a very noticeable brightness in the sound. This technique has a name. It's called the Picardy third. Third refers to the third of the chord that you're raising to create this sound, and Picardy is a location in France, and nobody's quite sure why it has that name, but it's likely that composers from that area used this technique very often. Traditionally, the Picardy third only applies to the very end of a piece, the final chord of a piece, but in modern days, composers will throw it around throughout a song. Spirit of the Night uses it both throughout the song and in its conclusion. Make no mistake though, regardless of its placement in the song, the Picardy third only applies to the tonic chord. So in the key of A minor, your Picardy third is an A major chord. In the key of C minor, your Picardy third is a C major chord. In any case, it only applies to the tonic chord of the key, and only in minor keys. So what good is this? Well, as shown in the Secret of Mana track, this can turn a otherwise sad song into a more hopeful or even triumphant direction. It's also extraordinarily cliché, and if you use it too often or in the wrong way, it can come off as cheesy or inauthentic. However, even this isn't so much of a bad thing. If you're trying to write a song that's intended to come across humorously, say you have a character who thinks he's way more important than he actually is, throwing in a cliché such as this one might be a good way to reinforce that. That said, I do want to show you a couple of ways you can use this technique without sounding too predictable. In my experience, the most common way to approach a Picardy third is to use a sus4 chord on the tonic. A suspended fourth chord is when you have a chord built with the root, a perfect fourth, and a perfect fifth. It has no third, so it's not major or minor. This creates a feeling of expectancy, because your ear expects that fourth to move down, either to a major third or a minor third, expects it to resolve. So this resolution is very, very common, and avoiding this tonic sus4 to Picardy third resolution is one wonderful way you can keep from sounding cliché. If you must use it, I recommend avoiding using the major third in the melody. Instead, try another note, such as the fifth or something, and keep the third tucked away in the harmony where it will be a little less noticeable. To expand on this, the single most creative use of the Picardy third that I have ever heard was from a song called Pilgrimage from the JRPG Atelier Totori. The intro of the song is in the key of A minor, so as we're nearing the end of the intro, we have an F chord, G, A sus4. You know where this is going? So the D from the A sus4 chord does resolve down a semitone to the C sharp, but the rest of the harmony does not imply an A major chord. It actually spells out an F sharp chord in first inversion. This is way outside of the key. It's incredibly creative and it catches your ear. And the best part is, this chord is functional. The verse begins in the key of B minor, in a modulation from A minor to B minor on a B minor chord. This F sharp chord is the 5, the dominant chord of B minor. So not only is this an unexpected, surprising way to resolve that suspended D, but it's also functional as a means of changing keys, which is mind-blowing to me. My next example doesn't actually involve a Picardy third, but I did want to include it just to show you guys how you can play with the listener's expectations. This is a song from Atelier Sophie, and it's in the key of G minor. It sets your ear up for a Picardy third, but then it doesn't actually go to it. Take a listen. So the last two chords in this song are G9 sus4 and G7 sus4. Over the first chord, we have an A in the melody, which naturally pulls your ear back to the tonic, which is G, since this is in the key of G minor. And that's exactly what it does. The A moves down to a G in the next chord. What's interesting, though, is that with this sus chord, he's kind of setting you up for a Picardy third. Again, because this is such a common way to set it up. But that's not actually what happens. Yes, the A resolves down to a G, but you would expect the suspended fourth, which is C, to resolve down a semitone to B to create a G major chord for a Picardy third. But that's not what happens. The fourth stays suspended. It remains suspended, and so it's not entirely resolved. I think it's a cleverly subtle way of setting the listener up for that sound, but not quite delivering. In a very intentional way, I think it's almost like asking a rhetorical question, where you're implying what you want to say, but you want the listener to kind of figure it out for themselves, if that makes any sense. If you have a concept that seems cliché, don't just toss it aside. Look at it from new angles and see what you can do with it, whether by stripping away all but the necessities of the concept and reforming it into a way that sounds completely different while still carrying the original's intent, or by playing with the listener's expectations by setting something up and then going in a different direction. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, you can let me know in the comments or email me at ongakuconcept@gmail.com. If you want to talk about this concept or video game music theory in general, I suggest joining the Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/ongakuconceptvgm. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.